Okay, yeah, right. So I was actually going to talk about the project at the end of the class, but like what Edgar is asking, you're asking basically that you're going to be using the same project. Would that be okay? Is it?
No. I'm actually, because let's say we already choose, because this is for the QM, is a group project, right? So we already choose the topic. But I think now is it we need to learn, or we need to finish how many percent of the class, then we can know that we are doing the right thing for the project, like do we using the tools, or what content do we need to have?
Actually, you have to do the project as you go along, you cannot wait until you finish the whole sessions, the whole 12, whole 14 for you to do the project. That one is really looking to sell it, lah.
So
So
means
I'm
that we use the content that we learn along the way, then we input it in the project, right?
correct. Like now, I already tell you that in by next week, I actually wanted to see some. You have already done your work breakdown structure. You have already very clear about what are the components, what are the problems. You have already write up what are the problems, quality issues to your project. And what is the quality policy in the organization, which I've already covered with you.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is your organization in terms of quality management like, and then after that, after the police finish her class, she's already done quality planning with you. So basically, actually up until this point, you should be actually focusing on addressing all sorts of current situation with your company, with your project, with your case studies, about quality, and then you must cover like up to quality policy. So whatever you've learned in quality policy, like how I was talking to you about how the support, what is the vision, what is the company's vision like, and all that. Because you see, without understanding of the policy, you are going to be a lot of problems could be stemming from the management. It's not really the projects that the management is not willing to put in the money, to upgrade the machineries, or they're not willing to change, to a new systems, or they just want to stick to some ISO systems, and which is not actually helpful and all that. So we want to see, we want you to review on the policy. So at the moment, you are going to be writing what you guys are doing now will be like writing about the background of the project, writing about the quality policy in your organization and the quality policy that is applicable for your project, and then maybe break down your project into different kind of works and then addressing the different issues, quality issues that we are talking about here, not any other issues. Yeah, the quality issues, that we're talking about here. So that if you can finish all this by, let's say, week 7 or week 8, I mean, like Dr. Shelley will come in around week 6. Yeah, I think so. Week 6 or week 5. Week 5, sorry. So that means Dr. Lee should be finishing in next week, end of next week. So by the time she finish, you are good to go to cover, like all these issues already. Like you should be finishing up on that. And then once she is done, you should be moving into creating your own QMS, like which is talking about QP, QA, and QC, about how you can use your own QMS, your own reviewing of the current QMS, and see how you can make improvement to your own QMS, or creating your own. If there's none at all, in your organization or in your project, then you can actually create that for your project. As the project manager, we're assuming that you are the project manager or the quality manager for the job. Okay. So you see, whatever Dr. Shelley that is going to be teaching you on those tools, techniques, like those are control tools, statistical process, and all that. Hers is going to be 4 weeks of very, very mathematics kind of things, which you may not even use it at all in your assignment. I mean, like you probably, that will be under QC tools lah. I mean, like after you have learned that, maybe like for those of you who are in manufacturing and oil and gas and all that, you may want to use that tools, you see. That, of course, for construction, you probably be learning about fishbone diagram and all that. And then you probably say that, okay, now I want to use that tool for my QC part, see, of the assignment of my QMS. So whenever my data comes back from site, there'll be somebody who key in the data, and then, your quality team will have a weekly meeting on assessing those data, and then using what sort of tools, that will be your QMS, you see. So like I said, it's going to be along the way, you're going to pick up all the knowledge and topics and tools and techniques and all that. Yeah.
Okay.
So by the time Madam Rohaida comes in, she's going to be talking about TQM and Six Sigma and all that. Those sort of things is already, by the time you reach there, these are like very like overall what are the current available system, So obviously, if you haven't created your own system, you can always borrow from some of the system, ISO and all that, and then use it for your project also can. But by the time she finish, I think your project should be almost finished already, actually. Yeah.
Okay.
The project is actually designed in such a way that you will be using the knowledge that you learn along the way. It is definitely not something that will come at the end, and then you will learn at the end, and then you have to finish your assignment in 2 weeks at the end, kind of thing. Yeah. Assignment, Dr. Shelley will be giving you 2 assignments, and those 2 assignments will be based on whatever she is teaching you. Okay. So I saw those assignments. It's very calculation based kind of assignment. So whatever she's teaching you, whenever you come to class, when she gives you the assignment, whenever you come to class, if you have problem doing it, please address it, immediately. Don't wait until the end of the sem. Huh? Mine is more like a reporting, write a report sort of things. Yeah. So okay, I hope that is clear, huh? Address and everyone else. Okay.
Yes. Thanks.
So next week, like I said, I want to guide you in the way that, even though it's not my session, I'm more than happy. Remember to say that I said this to you, that I'm happy if over one of the weekdays, like over lunchtime or 11:30 or 12 o'clock, if everybody is available, I don't mind sitting down with you for like a half an hour, 1 hour session. Then if you want me to take a look at which stage you are in, like I set you a mini goal. By the end of next week, you should be finishing up on the quality policy and moving into the issues and problems regarding your project or your manufacturing line or your production line or your oil and gas, whatever, components or parts or whatever. So that, by right, you're supposed to be up to date. So if you guys want me to take a look, it's either you email me separately, then I can comment on it separately, or we can have a session on that, I'll sit down and, like you can ask me questions like where is the problems and all that, or you can show me some of the formatting, how you, arrange the report and all that, then I can sort of comment, So this is like a assignment sessions that I can do with you separately, okay? And then after week 5, the next one will probably be like week 8, whereby I do want to start seeing at least I want to see the form of your QMS already, like, what is in your quality planning, what do you plan to put in your quality planning, what do you plan to put in your QA, what do you plan to put in your QC, and how all this will address the issues that is the production line of the project is facing currently, you see. So that will be around week 8 or so, and then I'll be back in week 12. But by the time I come back in week 12, you're almost there to handing the assignment already. So I could probably see you another 2 times or so. Up to you. Like, this is really very much up to you. Like I said, I am telling you that I'm available. Then we can make some arrangements if you want me to review your assignments. You see, I don't want to use the word assignment, project. Mine is a project. A project is a group project. Yeah. Assignment, I think Dr. Shelley is going to do either pair work or should be a one-to-one. Yeah, sorry, cannot be pair work. NQA says individual is individual assignment. So we are very strict about these things.
Dr. Ting.
Yeah.
For the policy, quality policy, can we have any reference or have to create a new policy based on the class?
Looks like you didn't understand me. Quality
Yes,
policy already say
yeah.
that you have to look at your company policy, not
Okay,
any
okay.
other policy. Who
All
asked
right.
you to go and create policy? I never asked you to create a policy.
Okay.
Policy, what is in the note is saying that what is in a quality policy. Okay? So when you read the notes, you should see what's supposed to be in a quality policy. And then when you see that in the quality policy, that is, or you can search for more information on what is a quality policy. Okay, that is theory. And then after that, you need to go back to your own case studies, your own company, and your own organization. What is the organization quality policy? And some of it may not be written, but you can actually write it as a general feel about what the management is all about, what is the attitude towards projects, what is their effort, in the projects, in every single project or in every single production line, all that. Depending on where you work, you see, like you guys are coming from very, 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 very wide, vast kind of background. So I cannot give you straight one example. If I'm going to give you, I'm going to give you construction examples, and the other 6 person will not be happy, you see. You understand, Natia?
Yes, Dr. Ting.
So I'm a bit worried when you ask me, do you need to create your own quality policy? No, you don't have to.
I was a bit confused. I mean, like,
Yeah.
okay, the policy must be created or just use the existing policy from our company, and then from there we derive what is the problem in all those things.
You're not deriving the problem from your. Okay. Put it this way, it's good that you ask, because then I actually detect that somebody here is actually off the rail here. Okay, quality policy. If you have the document, you will go through those documents. If you don't have those documents, you'll be probably picking it out, bits and pieces from every department. Then you can actually write sort of like your own your company's own quality policy, as a general statement sort of things, and not in detail. Okay.
Okay.
Because that one is what you have observed from the different departments or from the different components of your company, you see. Of course, the best is, I'm sure there are some, especially oil and gas and manufacturing, you probably do have your own quality policy, especially if you're looking for like the extract, that type. Yeah, I'm sure they have a whole pile of documents available on that. So what you need to do is review those policies based on whatever we have learned. Like you can set the parameters with whatever that we have learned, and then you go and look for those things in the quality policy and see if you can point out any problems or anything that is going to be affecting your project. I mean, at the moment, it's more like reviewing the policy a lot only. I'm not going to ask you to tell me, oh, where are the problems in the policy? No. Okay? So just review the policy, get a feel about the policy, what the policy is all about, and then you look at your production line and your project, and then you write about exactly what is the problem, the quality in your project, and then it's later on you're going to link the policy and the project problem together. You see, not all your problem, the quality issues, will come from your policy. It can be part of your policy that is problematic. And then some of it may come from the material that you are purchasing, you see. And that will probably be going back to things like your procurement section, there is no communication, or there's no linkage, or there's something missing between your communication. There's something missing between your procurement people and your production people, you see, which is something like people from the office who is buying the concrete, the steel bars, they are not communicating with the site people, you see. So we are trying to get you to detect your quality problems. After you list down all your quality problems and describe all the quality problems in your project, then you need to think in a very system way of where this problem actually comes from. Some of it may be from your policy, some of it may be from external, some of it may be from internal, the actual production line or the machine itself or the manpower itself. Then you are applying whatever we have learned actually to link up this whole idea of where your problem comes from. See, and some of the problem may be interrelated, which means some of the causes could be interrelated as well. So this is the part that is going to honestly define how different your group is from the other group. This is how in-depth that you can think about, see, rather than, yes, everybody can hang in an assignment, can pass assignment, list down all the problems, and say, oh, the problem comes from this, and then I'm going to solve it like this, like this. Yes, everybody can do that, and no matter how, for this sort of subject, you can even go rank something out, and I wouldn't probably know the difference because I'm not from your industry, you see. So then, but I can tell from my experience by reading the project, like how much thoughts and how much, in depth that you put in, you see. So people who are going to be getting A and B and C, the difference will be there when you are not going to be, you are going to be thinking a lot further than your other group, your other classmates, you see, the other groups that is presenting that thing, if that can be seen, you see. So then before you create even a QMS solution, your QMS will be your solution already, guys. There'll be your solution already, and those solution will be applicable to address all these things. And then some solutions, yes, I have to write a report, say, oh, my solution suggestion A, B, C, D, and write 3 paragraphs on each of the suggestions. And that 3 paragraphs are like probably that, things that you can copy from textbook, and, addressing it. But we can tell, we can tell that, by the way that you write, that whether this is going to be something that is really going to, you can actually use it in your workplace. For masters, I remember when I was doing my masters, because I actually did a similar kind of masters like in management like you guys. So my lecturer was telling me that, basically 20 years ago, we are already focusing on masters is like an application. So you do that, the report that you write and all that, we really hope that you can even bring it back to your company and you use it in your company sort of things. It's not about undergraduate studies, like how you can just write something, and then you copy something from the textbook, copy something from the internet, and then put it together and then say that, oh, this is my solution, blah, 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 and then it doesn't mean anything, It's something that, we want application and we want data, a lot of data. And similar with Masters by Research, you're going to be doing a lot of data analysis. Here, you're going to be doing a lot of data analysis, and that data analysis is about how you can link all the problems together, and problems and causes and causes, and what, no, this one straight line thinking is problem and causes, correct enough. But if you go for your diagonal thinking and your same level, like a same platform level kind of thinking, it will be problems with problems, causes with causes, problems with causes, problem with causes, and they will be all interlinked together. So that is where, if you can write that out very clearly, that how you can actually interlink those problems out very clearly, then we can actually have a QMS systems that not only address the problem, you really eliminate all the causes as well. And some of it may be even like killing 2 birds with 1 stone, and killing 3 birds with 1 stone. So this is something that we hope to see from the QMS that you are going to be suggesting to us, okay? Suggesting to your company, if you think of me as your company, of your management. Okay? Any questions? So I always say, take it a step at a time. That's why the way that I guide my students with assignment is I actually spend a lot of time doing the classes for the assignments. Because to me, that is the practical part of things already. No matter how much we talk about in theories, there's only certain limitations. There are limitations to what we can give you. and what you can absorb as well in terms of theory. Okay, so if we talk about assignments, we're trying to apply whatever we've learned into the assignment. And what more direct way than that? I can give you a lot of case studies. We look at different case studies and all that, but that is not as practical as going straight to your assignment and apply that. And that's why I like, guiding you through the assignment rather than giving assignment and then I'll see you again in, week 12 and then handing you assignment sort of things, and I think that is not effective lah, especially for practical kind of classes like this. Of this so that we can go to our class. Okay. There's only 6, one is missing. Okay. Anybody message me? Is this still waiting for me somewhere? Okay. Okay, scope management. Okay, so this is back to project management. And you can see that in our syllabus, in project management syllabus, we have actually give you a lot of whatever we have here is actually very the number of topics is not as much anymore. Okay, if you're going to be doing a civil engineering master's for project management, we're going to have like scope, team, communication, risk, quality, time cost, procurement, everything, in one subject. Okay, so in engineering management sessions, you will see that we spend a lot of time talking about scope management. We will give you a lot of time into time management, cost management, and also procurement management in just the project management course. Because quality management is already taken up as a separate subject on its own, and risk management is being taken up as a separate subject on its own. So we won't be covering any risk management here. And in terms of team and also communication management, you will see that we already have a subject called organizational behavior. So in that sense, it will be more or less there, you see. So don't be surprised that when you hear the word project management, how come this project management class only concentrate on these few topics only? Actually, essentially, there's only 4 topics that we are covering here. Okay, and at the end of it, what I will try to do is integrate everything together in terms of whatever you've learned, time, cost, quality, risk, and procurement, team, and all that. So it will be all integrated together. So yeah, and you will see that, how come we're also learning cost management here? Aren't we like having a financial cost? But that financial cost is actually more on the financial things like financial tools, not so much on costing of a project and cost management of a project. Okay, so this is a bit different. Financial management, they are more into the tools, the statistics, and all that. Okay, here we are more into calculation, doing the budgets, and all that. Okay, I will explain that a little bit later on as this particular subject goes along now. So I hope you can see that there's a bit of a difference in terms of the subjects that we are doing, and then how it is actually applicable overall in that sense. I want you to see the big picture and just not be cropped up onto the subject itself and forget about, other things are important, to be joined together as well. Okay. So I think for scope management, Rohaida already explained to you generally. I took a look at her notes. I think she has already explained very, very general, a very big overview about what scope management all about. And actually, I was hoping that she would cover up until scope definition. Even though her notes did mention scope definition, I feel like it's very general. So unfortunately, I have to be a bit more, I will have to sort of like maybe repeat a little bit of what she actually mentioned to you by adding in some of the tools and techniques and all that. Okay, hope you're okay with that. We will do that because I took a look at her notes and they are very general overview about, what is this, what is that, what is this, and at the end of the day, you will come up with the scope definition. Okay, and here I am going to be more this particular part one of the notes is actually to support her notes, okay? Support her notes to see whether she can actually, I mean, like, in a way, sometimes I do give her these notes, but then she probably couldn't really digest it and utilize it because we are all different individuals. So I also cannot be very strict in telling her that, you have to do this, So I feel like maybe there are some parts that is not fully covered. I'm trying to cover it with you today. Okay? Hope you're okay with that and not find it like repetitive. I mean, she is doing well. She has her own, she gave you an overview about what scope management is all about. But I'm going to be supplementing. I would say I'll be supplementing a little bit. Okay? So this part one of your notes, okay, this part one of your notes will cover some details of what she has covered. So what is scope? Scope is actually the outcome, what you want at the end of the day, and what is the deliverables? Is it going to be that? Is it going to be a submarine, or is it going to be an aeroplane? Is it going to be a school building? Is it going to be a temporary works? I do want you to be very aware here. There are two things that we are focusing on here, and I do not want you to be confused. Okay, number one is scope. Scope. The word scope. Okay, and the other word is project. Okay, and if I look at the umbrella of these two words, scope will be the umbrella. Okay, so you have an umbrella called scope. And then this scope will cover project. Okay, so what I'm going to explain to you today is basically, first is the scope. And then after you've done the scope, when you go down into scope planning, we are going to be focusing more into project ready. So it's going to be starting to get very, okay, the example is like this. Let me try to think of an example, a very normal real life example. If let's say, should I talk about food? Maybe I should talk about food. Okay. So let's say if you say now it's very close to lunch, so we're all thinking about food. So let's say you say, okay, lunch. Okay, so we are going to be talking about lunch. Scope definition is lunch. Yeah. So we are trying to find out what is the scope of our lunch. Okay. So we need that scope. We need, because we're hungry, there's a need for it, and then after that, in your lunch, what will you be covering basically? What needs will you be covering? So I'll be, when after you study your scope and after you come up with your project charter, you should be having that charter of, we need to, we as a scope, we need to have one carbs, one protein, two greens, for example, for our lunch. So basically, that's the scope of your lunch. Okay. So then after that, when you start to plan for your scope, okay, and when you start to get into it, you need to plan what is your project will be your carb, one project will be your carb, one project will be your your different components like your protein and your greens. So then we've got these like few things that we need to think about in detail now, and when you put it all together, you're delivering the lunch. You see? So it's in terms of project, there'll be needs. Let's say that I from this point to this point, there's always traffic, there's always congestion, there's always things that we need to, that the traffic is too slow, it's not effective, and all that. And you've got a lot of people complaining that it's actually better to walk than to drive in a car during this time, on this road, etc. So then you've got all these needs and all these things coming in, and then after you've done all the studies that we are going to be talking about here, then you realize that, hey, we need to widen the road. So widen the road is the scope, you see? So when you say we want to widen the road, that's it, you finish. You're doing your project charter already. You've done your project charter already. And when you widen, there's going to be thinking about, all the issues that will be creating, if you're going to widen the road, the timing, the evaluation of whether this is a good time, whether you have the money, or all that to do this particular scope of work. Okay, and then obviously by then you already know, okay, now my scope is called widening of the scope. So then this is going to be your project. And then we will go in and start to define your scope. And when you define that scope, or you define, we call it project definition. So you will see that there are some people who actually interchange it using the word project and scope, project and scope. But I like to be a bit more specific. When I say scope, it's just a very big thing. And then when I say about project scope, then it's going to be that particular project. So inside there, I'll be worried about the actual work, actual activities, actual things that must be delivered. You know, like even buying concrete, even, you know, buying bitumen, even having a roller, even whatever, it must be there. Those are what I call project scope definition. Okay? So that is project based. So you need to get this very clear. As the first part A of my notes, what we are covering, what Rohaida is covering with you is basically scope, the big scope, okay? And what I'm covering here with you in part 1 is that big scope as well. Scope, okay? Scope of work. And we're trying to find out what is the scope of work. So, okay, what is scope? What is the definition of scope? You know, you need to find out, you know, what is the outcome? What is the final outcome? What we really want. So it's like, okay, the outcome is lunch. The outcome is road, you know, a double lane or triple lane or quadruple lane roads. Okay, that is the outcome. And then what are all the different things, work that is involved, temporary works that is supposed to be there to execute the work, and what are the processes to make it happen. Okay, so these are overall what are the scope of work that will be involved. Scope definition. So you see scope definition here is actually starting off very, very beginning. Scope initiation. So we have our scope planning, definition, WBS. This is what Project Management Institute actually suggests to you. Okay. So what we're gonna be following almost the same thing. Yeah, it's gonna be the same thing, really, you know. But the work planning, I have actually more or less shifted to, I cannot shift this because this is Project Management Institute, okay? But when I do these notes here, it's being shifted. Planning is a bit later, okay? Because I put scope planning as project scope planning, yeah? Are you clear? I mean, like, I hope I'm speaking some sense here, okay? That you're not confused, okay? So you think of a very, very big umbrella in the initial, very beginning, why you want an umbrella, why you need an umbrella, you know. So scope initiation is like that, the initial concept, initial beginning, initial needs, initial demands, you know, of the society, of the people, of the politicians, or whatever. Something must initiate the scope, okay? Is it for energy? Is it for new transportation? You know, is it for reducing some problems, or is it to address some problems? There's many things that can initiate a scope. Okay, so here we will cover, you know, basically for any new project, the ideas can be from many sources, internal, external, you know. External here is more like from outside, you know, there's going to be more pattern, there's going to be like, you know, individual insights, you know, that sort of like create the idea of doing something. Okay, that is what we call scope initiation. It can be a coffee shop talk, is it? You know, many things started off like that, honestly. Many things started off, it can be really like a over a tea kind of thing, you know. Many businesses start like that. Many projects also start like that, you know, like we have a couple of things. Hey, you realize that recently we have a lot of businesses. You think, what can we do about it? We do this, I think we should start a company on this. Or maybe we can have a business of delivery. That's where probably Grab start, you see. So, you know, like, we can, why don't we just unify delivery? You know, like we get a lot of people to help us to deliver food to people, you know, etc., etc. And then, you know, that is where it comes from, you know. And then many engineering project, really, it doesn't just sort of like come from nowhere, you know, like just drop from the sky, you know, or one night, you know, you dream about a dream, you know. If you dream about a dream, you know, and then that is also your initiation. That is probably a message from God, you see. So why not? You know, that is also your initiation. So then internal sources, these are like maybe your company actually developed something. Your company actually bought a patent. Your company actually have an R&D department that create a found out a new particular elements that will cure COVID. They will find a particular elements that will reduce hyperpigmentation in skin, for example. You know, it's where everything comes, a new line comes from. You know, just like skincare, there's a lot of ladies here, you know, so I'm sure you know about skincare. So now people say, okay, vitamin C can make you glow, you know. And then where does it come from? It should be from some R&D, some research, and something that, you know, actually some company has done. And then you can see now that a lot of this beauty cosmetic line, a lot of companies will have their vitamin C line, and that is they call it the glow line, the whatever line. So and a glow line, or the brightening line, the enlightenment line, everything to do with light, you know, will come with vitamin C, you see. So that is the sources, the new thing, you know. And then different company will follow, etc., etc. So this is really the beginning part, you know, at the initiation, whereby somebody found out that, hey, you know, when I drop oranges, you know, I accidentally slept with 2 orange on my eyes, and tomorrow morning I woke up, you know, my eyes are bright, you know. So that could probably be the start of that particular reason why people do that, you see. So then what happened is then there's a new production line that starts to actually produce. Let's say you are from a pharmaceutical company, because it's engineering, it's manufacturing, it's biotechnology, okay? So where you start line, and then the company is going to be investing in R&D and also investing in millions of projects to start a vitamin C line, because vitamin C is actually a very, very unstable element. So when it's exposed to air and sun and all that, very fast it will oxidize and make it very ineffective. So then there's going to be a lot of money that is going to be input into making it stabilize and all that. So you're going to be bringing chemical engineers, you're going to be bringing in chemists, you're going to be bringing in biotechnology people, you know, and then some research into some doctors and all that coming in. So these are initiation, beginning, you see. And at this point in time, are you going to spend so much money, you know, with over an idea? Yeah. So what you need to do is, before you move in and even create a production line, you know, ladies and gentlemen, when we put a production line, that is already somewhere in the middle, you know, of scope management already. It's really very belakang sudah, you know, like cerita belakang sudah, because that one is, we've already gone through all these processes to understand that you need to have a new project, you need to have a new production line, and that money to be invested into it, and the value that you'll be getting out of it, and then the maintenance that you'll be putting in, and the marketing money that you'll be putting in, etc., etc. So that those are the back things already. Okay, those are under these sort of things already, under here already. Okay, so in the initial stage whereby you want to say that, you know, we have an idea and let's study this idea. Okay, there's no scope yet. We study this idea, initiation. Okay, and then in project life cycle, this is called needs and demand. Okay, of the project, and then you're moving into concept. Okay, the conceptual studies, and it will be happening in the conceptual studies. Okay, and what should be in this particular scope of work, scope that you're looking at. You know, this idea, what it should be in this idea. I should put it this way. So what you need to do is, first you do an issue analysis. An issue analysis is not only about is it possible, is it worth doing? It's part of it, okay? It's about what really is going to be a problem. So like I say, the skincare issue, vitamin C is unstable. So that is an unstable. The instability is your issue that you probably need to resolve later. And then what are the problems? You need to identify those issues. And those issues can be very external based. It can be dealing with environmental issues. okay? And it can be dealing with your own company issues like whether you have the resources or not to actually embark into something like that, a new production line. You need to find out about I think the main thing is what we can do is what technique that you can have here with issue analysis is to brainstorm using what we call opportunity and threat. Okay, so opportunities is all the market. There is a market for it. Those are opportunities. But on the other hand, what are the threats that can make it not happen? What are the threats that can cause some problems to your project later on? So in a sense that, those threats are usually maybe internal and external as well. And internally, we'll be talking about funding, we'll be talking about capital, we'll be talking about manpower, whether you have enough of people to actually run the project. And then those are some of the issues. And then you may also be having some, depending on what you're doing, you may be having some environmental issues, especially for engineers. We have a lot of environmental issues involved. Creating a new product will create new waste and new pollution and new things. Is there any international law, legislation, or local law and legislation, like land code and all that will actually affect the efficacy of the project later, and even affect whether it's going to be a go ahead later or not, you see? So you may have a piece of, let's say you're looking at that area, you're going to be doing the development in the particular area. You may have to look at, one of the issues will be the land, whether this is an agricultural land, a mixed zone land, whether the land code is a native land. All this will be dealt with very differently, you see? So then, many of the chemical, oil and all that, they will be looking at like crisis issues like human rights, about even things like, if you build this platform here, this is a new project, you're going to be building pumping oil from this platform, it will create some environmental issues that kill the baby seals, or kill the polar bear, that kind of thing, and then and therefore you're going to have a lot of people picketing in front of your house, in front of your company, saying that you are just you're just a company who have no social corporate responsibilities, and you are just demons and devils, and all that. So those are the things that you really need to foresee, ladies and gentlemen. In Malaysia, we don't really think like that, because a lot of things, as we know, is very much politically driven. You see, some guy up there somewhere say that is we want this, also then we do this, so building railways, building a lot of infrastructure projects, they are actually going to be creating a lot of good things, but they are going to be creating a lot of threats to a lot of things as well. And like emotive issues, you have to think about that. Some of them are very fashionable issues, especially if you are dealing with some flora, fauna, like don't kill the polar bear, don't kill the panda bear, don't kill the rhinoceros, and those sort of things. So some ideas about where your issues may come from, you see, and sometimes it can be something that is very unexpected, can be from heritage, from culture, and many of these issues, if you have think about this in the beginning, it will not create a problem for the project later. Just very simple. I'm a civil engineer. I see a lot of projects that, dealing with native land, and then, the project is delayed, there's land issues. And even though it's a government project, an infrastructure project in JKR, they have to deal with some kampong people who does not allow you to take off their fish pond, who does not allow you to take off their trees, their banana trees, the coconut trees, because they have been praying to their ancestors for so many years. And there are projects that got stuck because of some culture and heritage and religious issues, that you are going to be taking off a temple, a church, or an old historical fort, or your project actually has an underground tunnel that was used during the Japanese era that should be part of the museum now, etc. like that. Then I study project delay. I do research in project delays, and you don't know how many times project delays actually comes from uh, issues that are related to site possession and issues that are related to um, uh, legislative issues that is related to people, that are related to cultural heritage issues. You see, and like I said, in Malaysia, in Sarawak, many things are still doable, lah. I mean, like how we just tumbang all the trees that are like 500 years old, something like that, and then there's not much of issues, later on, but then people are getting more and more aware of all this, and then they get very upset, because of this. And we are kind of like forgiving in a way. But if you're actually in Australia, you're actually in if you're in Australia, if you're in many other countries like the West or European country, you are going to be bankrupt by this, environmental group, honestly, So please be very, very careful. And especially as now, what we are dealing with is not up to that level yet, but we could at the end of the day be dealing with those things as well. Okay, so these are issues identifications. You're going to be dealing with all these issues. Think about it, but not all these issues are actually relevant. So you brainstorm on it, and then after that you need to sit down and 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 do some viewing and some filtering as well. You need to do some filtering, like these are the way of searching whether these issues are actually really important or not so important. Some art, culture, analysis, and how important it is, etc., etc. And some of it may not be applicable for your country, some of it may not be applicable for your scope, some may not be applicable for your project, and what are you dealing with? Some of it could be international issues, some of it could be dealing with South China Sea, and where you belongs to, and all that. There's a lot of these international issues involved as well. I'm actually more concerned about international issues nowadays, whereby we do have a lot of counterparts from other, like Malaysia. Always the international issues will be covering things like Singapore, that railway thing. If you look at this view on issues, Singapore and Malaysia, so that would be a lot of issues that you'll be looking at. Okay, so when you go through that, you need to filter those issues and then define those issues, and then exactly what is it that will be actually important. And then that is where you will move into what we call an environmental impact assessments. These are all tools, very specific tools to study all these things. Okay, are we clear on this? Yeah, good. Okay. Do you think that it makes sense to you? Does anything here that you want me to discuss with you, like, is it applicable to your work? No?
Maybe
No?
some maybe not direct, but need to see how we can relate it to our work. The one that you talked just now on
Yeah.
the
Maybe some of you are not in the management level, correct? Like not up to that kind of level. Yeah, but I think these sort of things are important for people who are actually working in, say, the state planning authority, and some of the bigger government agencies dealing with environmental issues, cultural heritage, and all that. A lot of times when we actually do projects, we actually ignore these things, and I find it's time that people start to look into this sort of thing carefully, and not so much to just forget about it kind of thing, and then end up with we have a lot, like, in Sarawak here. We remember, I don't know if some of you are old enough to remember that, like when we built the Plaza Merdeka, we actually chop off a lot of beautiful old trees, that are quite, quite precious in that sense. So these are actually issues, and when we're doing the airport flyover, this contractor, the impacting, actually just go in and chop off all the beautiful trees that leads up to the airport. You know, these are actually, I'm not talking about environmental things here. I'm not an environmentalist. I'm an engineer, you know. I mean, I like to solve problems, but I do not like to. But I do remember that I have a responsibilities to actually maintain uh, cultural heritage, environmental histories, and all that. That is part of my job, see. And I do not want young engineers and young people to forget about that. See, whenever that you are doing, wherever you're trying to solve some problem, and yet you have actually created a big, huge other problem, a host of other problems that you are leaving to your next generation, that you're leaving to your future, uh, uh, that you're leaving to your future engineer to resolve later on. You see, and I think like especially from the chemical people, the pollution of the river, the pollution of the sea, pollution of the air, you know, all these things are actually creating a lot of issues. And there's a lot of international rules and regulations that are related to these sort of things now. And you have to start to be very aware of it. So maybe, like I said, unless you are quite high in position in terms of your company making decisions on what to do next for the company and what to be embarking onto next for the company. These are the things that maybe you are not so aware of, but obviously, if they are aware of this, whoever is going to be doing the study will not be them, you know. It's going to be people like you guys, you see, like who are in the middle management or upper middle kind of thing, you know, like middle upper management people who are going to be executing this sort of studies, you see. Like in Australia, when they actually build when they actually want to build a freeway, you know, like a huge, long, 60 km freeway, and those freeways are like passing through many, many suburbs and many, many um, landmarks and all that, and many cultural points and heritage points and all that. They be very careful, you know, what they do with all these environmental impact studies and issues. Issues, you see, what happened here is you only studying the issue and you define the issues. And these are the next step that you do. You need to study the impact of these issues on your project. That is one thing. And you need to study your project have on the environment. This bit here, we're not really talking about environmental as in flora, fauna, pollution, water, you know, groundwater pollution, air pollution, and all that. It's not that, you know. This is something that we're talking about that is very big. You need to talk about the project environment and the project. You imagine a very big circle. Your project is in that circle. And in that circle, outside there are many layers of environment. One is the company. So then if you have one dot project, the first layer will be the company. The second layer will be maybe the local issues. Then the third out there will be national and international issue. This is the environment of the project. Okay. And the local issues, localized issues will be things like very directly, you know, in whatever that area, I mean the location it may be, you see. So and then the other one is the third layer would be things like international issues, talking about law, legislation, and all that. Okay, and then talking about political law, economics, legislation, and all that. Those are the issues. And then, but internally, first layer, okay, the first layer you need to worry about your company itself. And many, of course, stop at that. You know, they stop at that particular section, and then forgot about that your project actually exists in the local environment. And this local environment can be Kuching, can be Sarawak, you know, depending on how you define local. I would usually define it as the town, you know, or the area where my project will be in, you know, and then I'll be looking at the traffic, the legal, the traffic, the actual water issues, you know, the external, how the demographic, the economics, the social that is around my project, the heritage, the culture, etc. Those are very directly impacting the project. Then the external one will be more like political, legal, health, and all these issues that are on the bigger level, okay, that is on the outer level. It may look like it's not related, okay. So that's how you do your environmental impact studies, okay. Obviously, EIA is being used a lot in the environmental department, like the Department of Environment, DOE, NREB. So these people use a lot of, oh, you must do your environmental impact assessment, you must do your environmental impact assessment. So a lot of us think of environmental impact assessment as just studying the environmental issues. But if I do a project and my project is like what 10 million and above, I need to do an environmental impact assessment. I would actually need to study the where my project will be affecting the pollution, the flora, the fauna, the waterway, the riverway, etc., the groundwater and all that. So then I hand in that report to the NREB, and NREB either approve or disapprove and all that, and then after that they will ask you to do 3 month half yearly or 3 monthly kind of monitoring. And that happens a lot with manufacturing people and chemical people. You need to submit some report. Many countries do that as well. They will need to submit some report to some environmental department regarding the waste that they produce or regarding the resources that they place and all that, and then see whether they actually affects the environment. So these are that is a typical studies that EIA will always involve, But then when you think about EIA here in scope management, I do not want you to just do a comprehensive studies on the environmental issue. It should be the environment of that. Okay. So the best way of studying this is actually to do what we call a system thinking. So you do, let's say this is a highway project, this is a mining project, this is electrical work, this is a major manufacturing, this is manufacturing processing, and then development, dams, fish, all these different type of project. You need to think about, put this project in the center, and then you draw the circle. The technique is you draw the circle, first layer. And then this first layer, whether it's a private project or a government project, or whether it's private project, would be inclusive of private factories and all that, not nationally owned factory, but factories like X-Fact, these are all private company. So you think about the company itself. What are your policies? What are your rules? What are your management like? Internal things, and the money, the financial, the economics, the resources that you have in the company. Okay, so these are the first layer. Then the second layer, you think about where this project is located or what this project is going to be used for, you see. So then you think about all the second layer issues, which is directly impacting like the things like land codes, maybe the local land issues, local environmental issues, NREB, all these things, they come into that second layer. Is there any cultural heritage problems associated with that? And then is there any social issues related to that? What are the demographic like the area? What are the income level like the area? Who are the people staying there? Who are the people affected? By building, like you see, like many years ago, we have this sort of like a nuclear poisoning or some chemical poisoning from a factory in West Malaysia. I remember that, and then a lot of people staying around that area are actually like poisoned in a sense, and there was huge issues on that. And that particular project, that means people just go ahead with it. They didn't even look at, is there any human being staying in the radius of how much in that area? They're actually building it like right then, right in somewhere near to residential. Can you actually do that? This is absolutely crazy, isn't it? And then if it's a new project, it's really crazy. But if it's an old project that belongs 30, 40 years back, and people don't think like that during that time, but over the course of the years, during the upgrading, during the maintenance and all that, how come it's not being detected? this is really whereby, we are not doing our job, really as an engineer, if that's the case, you see. So the second layer, you need to worry about those sort of like external, but localized issues. And then third layer will be more on the national level or general level, the general economy, and all that. So all this will actually impact onto the project correct now. Yeah, it will impact onto the project. All this will actually affect whether the project is going to. We just have to answer a few questions. After you draw the chart, you will see right in the center is your project. The question is, any of this will actually make the project stop. Any of this will not be able to be overcome and your project will be stopped. Happy. Okay? That is the first question you have to answer. Any of this will actually create the project not to be worthwhile. That is another issue you need to worry about. Any of this project will make you, of course, what I call, no, you don't have the financial capacity to do that. Okay, so any of this environment around this project is going to create some form of possibilities of project being stopped, whether it's not viable, meaning it's not worth it. That's what we usually would look at. That is the two main criteria that we are looking at. At this stage, we are not expecting a major study yet, unless the government is very committed. Like let's say now everybody's behind about the subway, LRT or whatever, like MRT, LRT or whatever project that is, we're talking about in Kuching. Supposedly, if it is properly done, there is a level of study that should be carried out, and the government should be imposing onto a few millions onto studies like this. And they'll be studying things like social, economics, legal, health, environmental as in really the flora, fauna, and pollutions and all that. Then social economics, I mentioned that already, and any other issues, cultural heritage and all that. So I remember doing the Scoresby Freeway, the freeway in Melbourne that time, they talk about that, and then even before the project was actually embarked, even the project was actually a yes or no. At this point in time, we're still not talking about yes or no yet. It's not go ahead yet. So like this company called Sinclair Knight Merckx was actually engaged to do the entire study. And they actually studied this over 3 years, I think. And then they came up with about a volume of 10 or 12 issues of books on this particular area and how the project may affect the lifestyles, the pollutions, and all that. And then it's that study that must be completed first. So this is a really data collection. What you need to do is collect a lot of data, collect a lot of potential problems and issues and all that. This is really data collection. There's no major interesting tools that you're really using here in terms of data collection. Some of these are done using surveys, some of these are done using observations and some data collections, like mainly on surveys. I would say like traffic surveys, you'll be probably getting people to sit down and read the traffic over 1 week or 1 month on the flow of cars and all that. That one is one work. The work that is one type of study. And surveys on demographic will probably involve going to different houses to do some surveying work, or you can go to the statistical department to check out the existing statistics and all that. So this one here, what you really do is, like I said, the first step is draw that chart, put the project in the center, do 3 circles out there, put in all the different issues, and then ask yourself, observe what sort of issues will affect the project, making it not worth it, making it not viable, making it not possible. Possible and viable are 2 different things. Possible is things that will make it stop that day, right there on the track. And it's nothing to do with money. Okay? And viable is like it's just you don't have the money to do it. It's going to be really expensive if you're going to address all these sort of issues. Okay? And then all the compensation that you need to pay, or the taxes that you need to pay, it's just not worth it, So then that is viability studies. So we have 2 points here, 2 types of studies that we need to embark onto. I mean, like that kind of question. And obviously, the other thing that you need to study is now is inwards through the circles. How this outer, third, second, and first layer will affect the project. Now you have to go outwards. Outwards is like going that way, like how the project will affect the company, how the project will actually affect the local issues, how the project will actually affect the third layer more on the bigger level issues. Okay, so these are what you do in your environmental impact assessment studies. And each of these studies are done separately, differently, by itself. Okay, you can group it under cultural, heritage, legal, and all that, but then it must be looked at on its own separate level and separate attention. It must be given a separate attention by itself. So you cannot group it and say that, okay, overall environmental issues like this, overall is like this, overall it's not like that. Okay. So whatever you study, if there's any one of them that needs a specific studies, it needs to be carried out specifically. Okay. Like I said, normally these are all mainly on data collection and some statistical studies and all that. And that will actually be sufficient to show the report on how the project will affect the environment and how the environment will actually affect it. It's very, very important. And what we do here is we do not want, what will happen as the result of the project. These are things that we are looking at. What will change, what will make, what will be different after the project, and does the changes matter, and what can be done, and then who are decision maker, informed on what that needs to be done. These two questions is really something that we want to answer, and after that, these are all very, theoretical things also. I think we can go through that. So the major thing is after that you come up with the report, and that and obviously there's a decision making here that is about whether this problem the issues that you raise can be resolved or not, and how can it be resolved? Is there a way of resolving it? Or it just deals with things like all this, government willingness, and inferior standards, substandards, poor scoping, all these things are actually will be, if there are some problems that cannot be resolved, then you may not want to go further to define the scope anymore, honestly. So at this point in time, we're not even talking about how many lanes of road that we're building, how many level that we're building, how many stories that we are building, how deep is the well, how deep is the pump, all these things we do not know. How effective is this? How effective? We don't know. We know nothing, on that technical components of the project. This is very general. This is very beginning. This is after initiation. Yeah. And then you want to understand, the stakeholders, you want to understand the problems, you want to understand the issues, and then whether you can manage those problems, or whether it is likely or not to manage the problem. Yeah. So once we have done that, we move on to, at this point in time, if the answer is, yeah, good, things are fine, and I think the project is really okay, like after the studies. But like the Scoresby Freeway that I told you, it's really a huge study. Over 3 years, there was a report, and those reports are available in universities' library. They are available in their land and transport library, in any major library, and whereby people can actually access it and read it and all that, and then that is transparency. Obviously, it's a bit difficult for us to do that, and now we may not do that, but then that is how the rest of the world practice, honestly. When you want to do infrastructure project as much as this, like we don't build Bakun Dam just because of some politician says we need Bakun Dam. You get what I mean? Like, where is all these studies? We never see it. Who does the study? We do not know. Okay? And that is how people practiced 20 years ago. Are we going to be practicing like that in the future? I don't think so. Okay? So I think as you move on the managerial level, if you get more and more into this, and you will actually get more issues related to that. So you embark onto project initiate. It's not like some politicians sit there one night and say that, oh no, we need to supply electricity to the whole Sarawak, and therefore let's build a big, huge dam, and then they go and ring out some contractors, and then say that, hey, come, let's build a dam, let's build a hydro dam, and that's it, when China built the their Three Gorges Dam, it's so huge, it's actually involving like so many continents and so many areas, people, they have to flood so many villages, they have to cover so many cultural old buildings and all that, and they have to remove some of them, rebuild some of them, etc. It's a huge project. And do you think that they don't have to go through all these things? And then it takes years, to actually just study all these things before they can even move in and say that, yes, we are building a dam, Even though the will is there, we are going to build a dam. The political will are there. But then you really do need this planning to be done carefully. If not, the whole China may be swamped in water before you even know it, you see. So it has to be very, careful, and it has to be done correctly in that sense. You'll be losing a lot of things, a lot of money, if you do not carry out your environmental studies, issue studies, and get that done before you even define the scope. So here, once we have done your studies, these are the part that you will start to do your project charter. This is the part that you will write. These are the issues, these are the studies, and we need this dam, we need this road, we need this widening, we need this freeway, we need this, and then what we need to be careful of, what we need to be worried about in the design, what we need to be worried about in the construction, what is it that we have to deal with. This is your project charter. Okay, this is what we are saying. At this point in time, it's basically about the issues, it's about the what we are building, what we are constructing, what we are creating, what are we producing. Whether it's on the infrastructure, economy, like high national level or international level, or as a private company, we're doing a new production line, like what I told you, it's not skincare, or a new car, or a new design, or a new waffle, it's just something that it can be on that level as well. It's equally important, it's just that the things that we study may not be so much, that's all, We have any issues up until now? Do you understand where I'm going on about?
Yeah, understand.
Yeah, good. Do you think that is important? Like what I'm saying here? Have you guys ever thought of it that way? It's something that I'm curious about. Yeah.
I think it may be presented in a different way, but actually the concept is the same to me. The concept is there.
And maybe it's something to do with the understanding of the people presenting it to you as well, isn't it? I mean, like they may understand it on a different level. Like let's say if somebody is from the middle management level, when they talk about these things, they may be only constrained to just the localized issues or the
Yes.
company.
It's not wide. It's maybe more specific, but let's say for this one, it's more general. The one that you talk about is more wide. The perspective is wider.
But I do want, because the purpose of doing this is later on, you all will be moving on in your career, and I hope that the witness of this day, that when you do that project started, it's not so much of a, because say project brief, project, a lot of times we are moving into the direct project, small things, but then we miss out on these things initially, and that's when the problems comes into when you are doing construction, or the problem comes in when you're doing the production line. Actually, it can be detected a lot earlier on if this has been studied properly. So I think it's important to really look at 3 layers, not only the first layer. Most of the time, we like to look at the project itself only, and without looking even at the company level. Even at the company level, we also miss out a lot of things, actually. And what more to say, the localized level. Yeah. So you see, our undergraduate, if some of you are from our undergraduate, we actually do what we call an IDP, integrated project design. And in that project design, we actually force the students to study the site itself, where is the site. They will pick the site, and then they will study many things, surrounding the project. So we actually get them to do initial studies on concept and to come up with that concept. This is like come up with the concept. The project charter is what we call concept, The concept is what? Conceptual studies. So if we look at the conceptual studies, this scope definition here is what we call a conceptual study. So in the conceptual studies, we will study things like directly we'll be studying the site itself, and we'll be studying what are the existing facilities, where the water pipeline stops, where the road, where are the main trunk road that leads to the site, and where are the branch roads and all that. What are the road network systems like? The traffic studies and all that. And we'll look at the demographic of the area. We'll look at where the pipeline, where the pillar hydrants, the nearest to it, where are the substation, and then what does that substation do? What are the population numbers in that area? Demographic is very important. Not only is a social thing, but it actually will affect the usage of all the other facilities that you'll be building later on. You can say that, okay, my site, my houses that I built is going to be housing about 200 people in this area. But if we don't look at the existing demographic studies, then that means that you don't look at the existing people around the site. Then when you're building your drain, when you're building your water and all that, you're only thinking and limited to your site only, And then later on, after you build a site, and then, like 2 years down the track, suddenly, every evening water trickling, or you get, flash flooding all the time in your area. Why? Because initially you did not actually take into account of the surrounding radius, a few km radius of what the populations are like. If it's very condensed already, or it's very congested, or maybe it is a lot of people. If it's congested, it's not so bad because you already know the numbers that is available. But then there are some that you do not anticipate future population, and that's when the future populations are coming, your area start to be having not enough water pressure, not enough of drainage capacities and all that. So you see, these studies, we will generally focus the students onto those sort of like second layer-ish kind of studies, but it's more on the first layer, the second 1.5 kind of layer, So as a managerial level, you really should be focusing on all the 3 layers in that sense. That's what I am more advocating for in that way. So once you've done this conceptual, and you come up with a project charter, whereby we're going to be doing our scope planning. Okay, and then scope planning is what I call development stage. Okay, this is developing the idea now. So now you actually know that we need to widen the road. This is the project already. So from scope planning onwards, I like to refer it to as the project itself already. So it gets down to the more specifics. It gets down to the like the project charter will tell you the bridge, and all that. So now the process of scope planning will actually involve the project definition itself. It's not only about that scope definition up here, the project charter. It's about planning for the actual scope of the project. So it's the project, we call it the project definition. And in this project definition, you must look at what are the deliverables, what are the project deliverables, what are the components that needs to be built, what are the components that needs to be done, what are the parts that needs to be created, in order to have the final product, okay? And at this point in time, we wouldn't really do any design yet, but maybe we will have sketches, we will have some preliminary drawings and all that, but we do not have any design, like a full-fledged design yet, okay? And this is the stage that we would need you to know how to do what we call a breakdown structure. Okay, so for civil, we've got to call it work breakdown structure. For manufacturing, maybe it's product breakdown, or project breakdown, or production line breakdown. You know, so all these different type of breakdowns that you have, okay, it really wants to define the scope of the project, okay, the project scope, okay, the actual project. So now the bridge. So you want to know the bridge has foundation, and the foundation has what type of foundations are you going to be building? It's going to be micropiles. It's going to be, we do not know yet. But then, of course, at this stage, we also will be embarking onto some very site studies. You know, you want to go to the site. What is the selected site? Now, from the project charter, you will know where are the selected site already. So then you will go down and look at now in detail. You probably go and take log. You probably go and drill some holes. You're probably going to test some piles, you know. And you look at the soil condition, you look at the topography. That is all the things that they're targeted to collect at the preliminary stage. And from the preliminary stage, the topo, the geographical location, the soil strata, you know, and all this will actually be part of the studies. We call it investigation, technical investigation studies that will go on, and then you start to do some preliminary ideas of how the project will look like, some drawing, some dimensioning, you know, and how many piers, how many footings, how long, how wide, how big is the freeway, is 4 lane, and then is it going to link point A to point B and point B to point C, you know, and how the freeway will actually function and run and all that. How many layers of a freeway that you're going to be building, you know, how many circles that you'll be going around, you know, and how many links that you are building. Yeah, links. Links is the word for it, not circles. Yeah, sorry. Technically, it's called links. How many links there will be to it, you know, link from one area to the other area, the other one to the other one, east to west, west to north, south, east, west, a lot of things. So you'll be linking all that together. So these are the part that you are going to do your work breakdown. And work breakdown is very mathematical. So I can show you some examples on what a work breakdown looks like, you know, for say my course here. Let me have a look. Just shown these examples to some of my undergraduate students. I mean, like you probably have already learned this in your undergraduate studies, and you do that all the time as well doing your work. So this is going to be your work breakdown. Okay. At this stage, as a project planning, we can do as detailed as we can. We'll try to do as detailed as we can, especially those of you who has experience. You'll probably break it down like, okay, the grandstand, RC frame, stump, you know, this is first layer, second layer. This is the title, grandstand, you have your RC frame structure. This is the stump, your beam, and then in your stump, you do form working, bar bending, and all that. So we may not go to this sort of level, but at least we would need to break it down into the first layer. Like you have a multi-purpose hall, RC frame structures, you know, followed by staircase, roofing, sports facilities, you know, and water, sewage, drainage, architecture, M&E, landscape testing. So these are already quite a fair bit of things for you to be defining for your project. So for production line, for product, you probably be defining, like, let's say if you're manufacturing a car, for example, you know, your new design of the car, you know, and then you will need a line for the doors, you need a line for the, you know, machine, like engines, you know, and you need a line for the screw bolt, you know, and etc. So you need to design the whole entire process. So especially for chemical people, it's also the same. you need to know all the processes. It's more on the process breakdown in that way. For me, I see it as more of a process breakdown for people who are in manufacturing and in chemical, but I could be wrong, Correct me if I'm not right, just let me know, and then I will try to remember that. So you see, so your product or your process is being deconstructed. It's just basically like you tear it apart, look at the small parts, and then you need to build this, you need to build this, you need to build this, you need to build A, B, C, D. A handphone may look very simple, one gadget like that, but you have the screen, you have the body, you have the internal, you have the receiver, you have the transmitter. There's a lot of things within that thing that you need to break it down. So for engineering projects, for any production lines, for any part or any processes or chemical processes, you need to break it down into the different processes. That's how you define the scope that will go into it. Okay. So in this preliminary stage, after you carry out the work, the breakdown exercise, you are going to be doing a preliminary project definition, and that is considered as having a scope statement. And this scope statement, you will need to put down what are the project objectives, what are the description of the work, the project requirement, the constraints, the deliverables, the acceptance criteria. Acceptance criteria is the quality bit, like you cannot go over this, it cannot be that, what is rejected, what is not, and all that. And how long it would take, milestones, what are the cost estimates, and all that. Cost estimates at this stage, you probably not be doing full-fledged cost estimates, but it's more on the parametric studies, parametric calculation. Like if this component is roughly based on previous studies, previous historical data for other components and all that. I mean, like previous projects, and then you take it and try to project it into your project. A very important authority. I forgot to mention authority. Sorry, this is approval requirement. Authority requirement, especially for a lot of us who do issue analysis, need to project, company, local environment, and in that local environment and your company, that in between that 1.5 thing that I was talking about, that local authority is very important. Okay, local authority, this is talking about local authority. We're not talking about general legislative, OSHA Acts, DOE Acts, I mean like the environmental acts, all these are legislative issues that we usually put on a third layer. But authority requirement is we will put it in the second layer, very, very close to the first layer. Okay, these are the very immediate first layer that immediate second layer that you need to worry about. Okay. So after you have gone through all that, that you come up with that scope statement, this is actually normally I would call it a preliminary studies. I'll probably call it a preliminary development, preliminary design, or preliminary concept, or preliminary studies, or scope statement, or scope studies, or project preliminary. Some people call it project preliminary studies. Yeah, so or it involves some drawings and some calculations. Many very, very minor, very simple form of calculation. So this is the part that we're trying to explain what is in this particular section. Project requirement, okay, in your scope, project constraints, and then what is the success criteria, what are the assumptions that you make, okay? So once you have reached this, you already have preliminary studies. And these preliminary studies will really more or less develop your scope of work to a certain level, okay? And this is the part that you will actually need to come up with some form of option, okay? So once you know that this is the project that you're going to be embarking on, the next question is whether the project is actually feasible, okay? For civil engineering, we like to call it feasibility. We call it feasibility studies, okay? But I don't know what other what other industry codes it from. But this bit here, we are going to be focusing on project screening and project selection. So when you already study this particular project, you already got the scope, and this is what roughly how much it will cost and all that. This is overall, yeah. And from this overall, you need to screen. The number one question is, are we going to go ahead with this? I think it's very important. Are we going to move along and get into it? That is a question that we want. And again, you answer this question in the beginning, in the scope, in the definition, initiation bit with the issue. Is it possible? Is it viable? Is it worth it? Okay. Is it possible? Means that is there anything that will stop the project, like non-economic issue, non-monetary issue? Viable? Okay, viable means that do you have the money to do it? Number three, worth it? Maybe there are better things that you can do with the money. Yeah, those are the three questions that you can answer. So basically, in the initial stage, you already answered that. That is whereby you have your project charter. But now after you study your scope into, like your project scope into more detail, your project defined, the definition of your project is here now. Once that is defined, by looking into all these things and coming up with a preliminary studies that will cover, all these things in there. These are part of the preliminary studies report, okay? And some of it I explained a little bit more detail, like project requirement, project constraints, and also what are the success criteria, what is the do's and don'ts are basically now. So once you've got that done, now you're screening. Now you are really screening. Number one, you're screening with the money. Okay, is it viable? Yeah, is it viable? Meaning that, after you're done, the first thing that come out is this is going to cost you 10 million. So then your bosses will need to stop and say, oh, to do all this, I'm going to be spending 10 million on this. Yeah, okay, this is whether the money, you have the money or not, you see. If you don't have the money, or whether you have no way of getting money, no way of getting more loans, or at this point in time, the company is just not financially viable to carry out all this, to do a new production line for vitamin C skincare or to do vitamin A skincare, we do not know. Okay, so that is not viable. At the moment, die, cannot do, okay? That is the first question you have to answer. Yeah. And then after that, because from the preliminary study, you already have some estimate, and that estimates will tell a story to your shareholders, and to your directors and your CEOs and all that. They will decide. Then the other thing is, you've already done some technical studies. You go to site and carry out some bore log, whether some topo, send in some surveyor to do some checking on the site, topography, the location, everything. So you've done some technical studies, you've done some testings, you've done some form of studies technically, and then you look into different authority that, this area belongs to BOMBA, JKR, DID, councils, Palawan councils, or MBKS councils. So you understood the authority requirement, and when you have done all this, you can do your feasibility studies. And these feasibility studies will involve whether technically, economically is not actually what we call, it's not really what we call financial studies. I want to split up these two. Economics and financial is two different things. Financial is just basically after the cost estimate is done, you need to study whether you have the money to do it or not. Okay, and plus other things. I will talk to you about that later. It's about money, dollars and cents. Where if I talk about feasibility studies, it's more on things like economics, whether it's in feasibility studies, there are things that are measurable with money, dollars and cents, and things that are not measurable with dollars and cents. Like in feasibility studies, when we do cost benefit analysis, we will do things like how much it will cost, and then technically, yes, it's about whether the thing is feasible, whether the design can overcome it, And then, of course, it will boil down to the questions of how much that particular design will cost and whether it's actually going to be able to solve the problem. So these are feasibility studies in terms of what we call the dollars and cents that can be measurable in dollars and cents. And then whereby we also do studies like social economics, um, social studies, environmental studies, things that cannot be measured by dollars and cents. And that is whereby we need to study this carefully. Okay. And it will be done more in a qualitative manner or some form of rubrics or some form of studies. We will try to make it quantitative as much as possible. But there will be a chance that, there are some things that will be probably more descriptive and that is more relevant to you cannot really describe health in terms of money, correct or not? So as much as possible, we try to describe things in terms of dollars and cents. But these dollars and cents here, we're not talking about the financial dollars and cents. We're talking about feasibility dollars and cents, okay? Cost benefit ratio in dollars and cents and cost benefit ratios in non-dollars and cents, okay? You cannot really measure health in dollars and cents unless you can convert it into the medical cost of somebody getting cancer versus, if the project is not done, people don't get cancer. It's very hard to define that, like really where the cancer comes from, you see, or where the heart attack comes from, or where the medical costs come from, you see. So it's very hard to define it. So we don't really do that. You see. So here, we're doing project screening and selection. And this screening and selection, we move into what we call, that feasibility studies. And I have a section down here. Yeah, part 2 here, the feasibility studies. So when we talk about these sort of studies here, in this project screening, we are talking about the very initial, like how do I put this? I'm going to explain it in a very, because things are actually quite, mixed up in a way, so I'm trying to sort of like clear it out, in a more systematic way for you. So in these feasibility studies that we do the first issues, like I say, you need to relate it to understand whether the project is actually a go ahead or not. That is very, very important. And once you've done this, yes, you can go ahead. Again, first you do a scope, whether this scope can go ahead or not. You do it through issues analysis and EIA. Okay. And now we're talking about project. This project scope can go ahead or not. Because you've already do more definition, you've already done a better, clearer definition of what the project should have, the components that it should have, and all that. And this is the part that you need to screen whether the project is a go ahead or not, whether it's feasible to let it go ahead or not. I think what I can do here is maybe I should kind of shift this thing away first, because otherwise it may be a little bit more complicated for you all. I think I will shift it up here, then it will be a bit more clearer that way. And the problem is some of this is going to be repeating. It's just that repeating in a lot of detail. That's the thing. I think I'll probably not change this financial papers. I'll cut this up first, and then we'll see how it goes. I'll put it here. So this is what we call a project initial screening, and that is involving, this initial screen. Let me go up. Okay. So this project initial screening, like I said, it is involving around whether the project, the initial project screening selection process. So you need to understand why, we need to do this. It's all very theory, I mean, like, just say, and then this initial screening and selection of projects, this is the part that we'll be asking ourselves, is it possible? Is it viable? Economically viable? So like I said, we are going to be studying feasibility studies, and then after that, we're going to be screening and do some selection, like how the project actually fits what is it. This is all on a more on an organization level. And a lot of us may get this confused with option studies. These are actually not option studies. These are actually, like I say, based on the fact that number one, whether there is any issues and any problems that will actually stop the project from finishing, stop the project from even going ahead. And number one is the technical, that maybe some of this land conditions is not good. Some of this, there may be topography that has a big valley somewhere that is going to be too expensive to carry out. And some of it is the ground conditions technically is just not feasible to actually carry out. And then there may be other issues related to authority. The authority may not allow you to do certain things, and therefore you have to not go ahead with the project. And this is the part that we are trying to see whether the project is actually yes or no. You see, the first bit here that we spoke about earlier on is about the scope to go ahead or not. Once the scope, like you've done the initial environmental EIA and also the issue analysis, once you reach project charter, it means that the project charter will tell you the scope is going ahead with. So the project charter, your management will review it, and it is a go ahead. Then you go and develop the scope statement, and that the scope statement will have different components of the project. It will be more what the project is going to be like, and you'll be doing some initial testing and all that. So you come up with a scope statement, and that scope statement is the one that you'll be doing your feasibility studies on and your viability studies on. And your feasibility studies, your viability studies, and your financial studies, these are the part that will whether this particular scope will actually be reasonable to be proceeding on to the next stage. Okay, so once you've said that, yeah, you've gone through all this, I'll rearrange the notes a little bit when I give it to you, yeah. So once cost benefit ratio, which I mentioned, these are more on to things that is not non-financial. Sorry, I should say that the word is non-financial. So feasibility studies will include these non-financial studies. Okay, and then there will be one that is talking about more on the financial ones. Okay. And then we also have another studies that we can do is actually on things that cannot be measured with dollars and cents. But at the end of the day, what you are studying here is the benefit and the cost. Whether it's dollars and cents, whether it's in non-dollars and cents, we need to study that. And then this is going to be part of your feasibility studies. Okay. And your feasibility studies also include things like technical details and all that. Technical possibilities, technical feasibilities, okay? Legal, financial, all these things are all being studied here, okay? And then we also have what we call a financial studies as well. And this financial study is about, I've already mentioned this, and these are all phases. I'm not going to go through it with you in a lot of details. These are general things that you do in your feasibility studies. Then the content of the feasibility studies. And then part of it is the economic analysis, which we talk about just now, your cost benefit analysis, economic and non-economic studies. And then these are some of the studies that you do: social, environment, yeah. think I should shift this one up. Project. I don't want to talk about life cycle costing because it's going to be really confusing. Let's cut this one out. Right. Okay. So once you see your financial studies is more onto really the finance, the cash flows, project funding, where is the money going to come from, capital expenditure. So your financial studies that you learn from the other subject, finance, it will be is going to be dealing more in this area. So this is going to be answering the second question, whether the project is actually viable or not. Okay, and then when you finish that, okay, with the feasibility studies, within the feasibility studies, you will have economics phase. I mean, like the confusion here is because economic studies, we're dealing with cost benefit ratio, we're also dealing with dollars and cents, okay? Plus those that you can't deal with from dollars and cents. So I think a lot of people can be confused when it comes to this financial and economics, financial studies and feasibility studies. Financial viability studies is more into the actual financial tools that you're studying, whereby the economic studies, which is part of the feasibility studies, will involve things that can be measured, the cost and benefit that can be measured with dollars and cents. It's got nothing to do with how much money your company have and what are the cash flow and all that. So those are two different things. Huh? You understand now? Are you all tired of listening to me? I'm kind of losing my steam in a way of talking after 2 hours. Yeah. Okay, so I will try to rearrange this note so that it's a bit more easy to flow than what I've put up just now. Yeah. I feel like, when you need to scroll up and down so much like this, it's not good actually. Yeah. So yeah, your feasibility studies will involve, these are all project screening. So in this project screening, I repeat, in this project screening, initial project screening, okay, this is talking about the scope statement. The scope statement that you've created. Okay, this is project definition. From the project definition, we are screening the project against certain criteria. First is the criteria that will fit your organization, and there are criteria that will be related to the feasibility and the financial part of the project. Okay. Overall management things are, these are all part and parcel. So your screening will be whether this project can go ahead or not. It will go ahead or not. Very much talk about in this particular whole section here, the whole study that you need to do after you come up with the project definition, a project scope definition. Okay, again, I repeat, it's different from scope definition. The scope definition is a bridge, for example. From project charter, you decided it's going to be a bridge to solve this problem. Okay, and from this bridge, you are developing it into a project scope statement. And project scope statement, what does it have? It has all the initial tests and technical things and all that. And then once you get that done, the different components, different activity, different processes that needs to be there to complete the project. So, okay, so it's going to be a bridge that has this sort of component, yeah, and this sort of component is going to build on this sort of land, yeah, and this is the land, the structure, the location, the geographical location, which river and which particular location, how big, how wide, all these things are the very process technical bit of how the project will be like. Okay, and then what you do is you do this screening, whether this screening is saying to us that whether this project is going to go ahead or not. Okay, and you need to do a few things here. Number one, you need to do your is it possible question. Is it possible question? We address that with feasibility studies. And feasibility studies will be comprising of two parts here. Whether things that can be addressed with dollars and cents, cost and benefit that can be what kind of cost your project will bring and what kind of benefit the project will bring. And this is on the level of whether, technically, is it doable? Is it feasible? How much cost it will be and how much benefit it will bring. All issues, social, environmental issues. Some issues cannot be related with dollars and cents. Some issues can. Okay, so your cost benefit, you can do it in two sections. One that is anything that can be measurable with dollars and cents, like savings, like maintenance cost drop, and all these things that can be measured in dollars and cents, or field cost that drops because you created a new project. Then on the other hand, you have things that you cannot measure, the cost and benefit that you cannot measure in dollars and cents, like I said, medical, health, safety, education, legal, all these things cannot be measured in dollars and cents. So you need to do this initial screening. So when this initial screening is done via feasibility studies, the outcome and the content of the feasibility studies are given in the notes. Once you've done that, you are already answering the question, is the project going to be possible? Okay, so if it's possible, the other things that the next thing you need to look at, is it going to be viable? And that is where your financial analysis, meaning that how is the company's cash flow, how the project will be spending money, how fast the project will be spending money, how fast will you be getting return from it, how much profit that you're going to get out of it. These are financial studies, and then where are you going to get your money? Is it going to be from loans? Is it going to be from new borrowings? Is it going to be from shareholders? Are you going to release more shares in the company so that people can buy and then you raise more funds? So all these are more on whether you have the money to do it or not. Okay, so when you answer these two questions, after you've answered these two questions, there's a third question that you actually need to answer, and that is whether the project is worth it or not. And this technique that we always use is what we call life cycle costing. The project, you need to study how big is the maintenance. I mean, would there be too much maintenance available? I mean, needed for that? But you see, I don't want to bring in project life cycle so early at this point in time. Because if I bring it in so early, we don't have enough of data to actually study project life cycle at this point in time. So you answer the questions of viable and feasible first. And once it is finished, I need you to look at the third thing, and that is whether after screening, you will also need to check out the relationship between your project with other aspects of project management. Okay, this is something that you need to consider as well. Okay, and the time, the money, the resources, availability, and all that. So here, once you finish this, you will get the answer. Yes, the project is a go-ahead, it's not a go-ahead, done. We've settled that, you're done. Okay, and your work breakdown is there. Okay, the third bit here, the third part that I need you all, and which a lot of you will be involved in. I think many of you will probably be involved in this second part and maybe the third part. The third part is more onto option studies. So after you've done your scope definition, your project definition, there is always something called, in your project definition after the scope statement, there is two options here. Go ahead or not go ahead. Correct. Now that the project is go ahead, you will be creating more options. Say, is it going to be a 4-lane road? Is it going to be an 8-lane road? How many links are you going to be building here? What are you going to stretch more into certain areas? Or in this hairline, are you going to do full hairline, for example? Are you going to do just serums? Are you going to do serums plus something? Yeah. So we do have that sort of like consideration, and this is what we call option studies. And in these option studies, you are basically also doing mainly what we call the cost benefit analysis. And this is the part that we compare options with options. And this comparative of options with MPV, PI, and all these things, yes, you actually do it initially with the project definition, but you do it now with the option. And this is the part that Dr. Lee, after 2 weeks, she will come in and teach you all the techniques on these sort of studies. So a lot of calculation based on how to calculate MPV, how do you compare options with options. This is what we call, some studies call it engineering economics, but if I use the word economic, then you'd be, I'm so confused. There's a lot of time we use the word economics here, you see. So in option studies, we also do cost benefit analysis. And in cost benefit analysis, we are going to be talking about dollars and cents, dollars and cents, dollars and cents. And it's all about the cost of these dollars, this option, the benefit of this option, the cost of this option A, the benefit of this option A, and etc. etc. We use very, very technical data. We use very, very mathematics to prove which of the option is going to give you the best result. And then you're done. You pick option A or option B or option C, doesn't matter. It can be only 2 options. Or you can skip entirely. There's no options at all. You basically are done even up to second stage. If there is really no option, you have to build a 2-lane bridge, then that's it. You don't have to have a separate option studies here. But we normally don't. We will also have an option studies. So some people will combine these two together and do an option studies. There are a lot of people who will skip the second phase stage and go straight after they do the project definition. They will go straight and do option studies. That is possible also. Okay. So it depends. It really depends. But I prefer you do this, confirm, go ahead, then you do option studies. Otherwise, we'll be creating 3 options, studying so many options, and then you tell me the project is not going ahead. I don't want that. Okay? So I would prefer to say, okay, confirm, go ahead, and then I do my option studies. From my option studies, I pick my options, and that is whereby you have fully defined your options, and that is whereby you need to look at the worth of the project based on what we call life cycle costing and value engineering analysis, which I will cover next week. I will probably give you a recording for that, but we'll still continue to have a class and try to brush up on all these, and get these things all settled down. And then I'll probably just take do a 1.5 hours class and then give you recording for VE and also for life cycle costing. That is to answer whether it's worth it or not. Now you have a scope, the proper scope. With the proper scope, that is whereby you are going to answer, can you make it cheaper? Can you make it better? And then also whether there's going to be too high of a maintenance cost involved here for you to proceed with these particular options. So these are all into life cycle costings and value engineering. So these 2 techniques here, we are looking at worth. Okay, so first we're looking at possibility, feasibility, possibility, answering the possibility. By viability, we're answering whether you have the money to do it or not. And then the third thing, whether it's worth it or not. Is there a better way to make it worth it? By then, you're already going to go ahead with it. So it's just to make it better so that it's less maintenance, and then it's actually better worth. You're getting a better performance with lower cost sort of thing. So these are on the third layer based on the option. And by now, you are going to be so clear about the scope of work that is going to go into the project. Yeah. And then it's about proceeding to do the final design, and to do the final costing, scheduling, all these sort of things will come into the picture. And many of us will be involved from this stage onwards, normally the actual execution stage. Maybe a lot of you will start from the option stage, picking up on that option and start to develop that options into very, very clear design, drawing, specifications, and all that. But by doing all this, and if you're involved in all this, or at least with these documents and all these sort of things, you will actually have a better idea when you develop that particular options into a better studies. Into a better project. Okay, so are we okay? Are you like completely baffled by me by now, or you are actually quite okay? Have I made it clearer to you, like what scope management is all about? Hmm? Okay. So I will say 3 stages. One stage is general, the big one is about the scope. Okay, scope definition that ends up with project charter. From the project charter, you input that into what we call project definition, and you do a scope statement. And that scope statement, you need to do some initial screening based on let's take out the word initial screening. Though initial screening makes it so, but it is initial screening, you know. So I cannot say it's not initial screening. So you can say that it's actually screening of whether feasible, viable, okay, and then when that is done, if the answer is yes, you put into the option studies. From the option studies, you will be doing a lot of these economic studies, which Dr. Lee will cover with you in week 6. I think today is week 4, 5, 6, yes. 6 or no? You are. Yeah, 4. Are we in week 4? Yeah, we are in week 4. So we're in week 5. 4, sorry, we're in week 4. Because our man and you are. So yeah, we are in week 4. So 5, I will finish up with VE, the work of the project, and tie out any loose end from this. And then she will come in and talk to you about economic studies. Okay, that is really a lot of these tools and techniques and calculations that you need to do in order to answer whether which of the option is going to be better. So, you know, if you can do all this, I'm pretty sure every single thing that come out from every company or from every government institute is going to be good, isn't it? I mean, like, it's going to be great, you know, because you've done enough of thoughts and enough studies and not just build anything and do anything and pump in millions and millions of dollars and just to put out a lot of white elephants at the end of the day. Yeah, which we actually that is what is happening all the time with our country, you know, and we do not want to do that anymore. We really do not want to do that anymore. Okay. I know I've been going on and on and on for like 2 hours, you know, so I'm a bit, you know, half deep, half I'm out of air now. Okay, I will rearrange this and put it out for you by tomorrow. And this recording I'll put out for those of you who didn't come to class. I'm sure if you can replay some of this a little bit more, then you will find it a bit, you'll find it clearer. Any issues that you want to talk about here? So now let's move on and talk about your assignment before we break for lunch, okay? I'm getting hungry, that's why I'm getting depuffed with my EM. This is going to be your individual assignment, okay? I will show you a big picture. I will show you something else that I created. All right. Basically, for your 60%, yes, 60% of your overall marks that you need to score, you are going to do me 3 things. Number 1, you're going to select a project or a product or production line or something, okay, that you have, and or case studies. So it has to be based on some form of processes, process or product or project, okay? Of your choice. Then what you need to do is you need to come up with the time management. You imagine this as a whole, as an entire project, okay? You imagine this as an entire project. You need to come up with that project, product, process for you to actually do your work breakdown structure. So I will assume that up to this point in time, you've already, you know, like study all the options and everything. It's a go ahead. And now with the work breakdown, you are going to do your resources input. So you're going to put in all your resources, and then after that, you are going to draw yourself the Gantt chart using production rate. Okay, so these are in time management. So this bit here, resources planning onwards and all that, it's going to be by Dr. Lee. She's going to be talking to you about that. So from week 6 onwards, you can start to do this sort of things already. So by next week, you will need to pick your project, do your work breakdown, and then when she finish up with you, she'll be able to come up with your Gantt chart. All we need is a Gantt chart of how long it will take to finish up this project or finish up this process or the whole entire process of producing something or the product or whatever. Okay, so get that done. That is time management, and then we will need you to do a cost plan. Okay, and from the time that you do the Gantt chart that you do, because some of the resources will require time, as in labor, you need to work for how many days for that particular activities. Then you need to calculate the cost. This is going to be an estimate. Second bit is going to be the estimates. Okay, and then after you've done this, you have your time and your cost, your estimates, your definition of the budget or the cost of the project. I need you to create your procurement plan. And procurement plan is this is the bit that you need to work on to the available. You need to take some references from existing procurement documents that you have, and you will look into creating a document, and that document is your project document that you need to write down. The report will be what sort of characteristic of the project, how long it will take, and then what are the bills of quantities like, and then you will create what we call section on tendering. So this tendering model is what sort of contract model that you're going to be using, what sort of tendering model that you'll be using, and then you give us what we call a summary of tender. Now that's the, like quality bit, I'm not covering anything. So there's no specification, no need for project specification and all that. It's more on a document. So then this procurement document. So this entire thing here is going to be 60%. So what happens is, because of MQA requirement, you need to do some individual project. So you will be handing in your Gantt chart and your costs individually. Okay, so this one is 10%, 10%. You will hand it in as an individual assignment. You can share the same project, but you need to do a different time and a different cost estimates. So this will be the first part, 20% is the individual assignment. Then when you have the data for time and cost, this is the part that you need to get together in the group and finish up your procurement document. Wow, you'd be like, oh, there's a lot of things to do. Yeah, it is actually.
So okay, we're using the same topic, but for portion A, B, we split. Then by the time we go to portion C, we will combine the same topic. Is that correct?
Oh, correct. So you do it now, you can do it together in a group, but when you submit later, your A and B have to be an individual submission. But I would love to say that, just submit the same thing. I don't really care, we don't really care, honestly. Like me and Dr. Lee, we don't really care whether it's gonna look different or not from, the group of 2 or 3, you see. But in case MQA come and check your submission documents, we do try to format it differently in that sense. You can use the same project, but I'm sure that once you've done the thing together, you can present it in a different way. What do you think? For A and B is basically you need to do your resources planning, and then you need to come up with I mean, normally for the other group, what we will always do is like just now, like what I show you. Let me open the file again. You see, this is what they did, you know. So they actually had like a combination of what breakdown, and then they actually did their resources. I'll show you some other examples. But yeah, so you know, like how they actually include in the table how they calculate cost. Yeah.
This is the, what do you call this one?
This is what you are going to be producing in a way, you know. I mean, like don't want to make it so complicated because theirs is a big project, big project. So yours is actually going to be simpler, like in that sense. I'm trying to find the files. The one just now, macam salah. Oh, let me show you this. Okay, I go directly to their assignment. Yours is actually like an individual kind of project, so I cannot give you so much things to do. Otherwise, you flip, you see. So this is how your report should really look like, you know, nice and clean, you know, and then executive summary, introduction, what is your project all about. Same thing with your QM, you need to have a project background or your product background, your work breakdown. So here you're going to be breaking down your work there, you're going to be breaking down your work as well. So I'm okay if you actually use the same project as what you're using there on your QM side. This is on two different topics anyway, you know, so use the same project, it's fine. So it saves you the problem from finding another project. And then you're going to break it down the work and describe the work a little bit. And then you're going to show me how the work breakdown is, like how, if this is product breakdown, you've got different components of the product, and then what is the work that needs to do for that particular components, each of the components. So this is how the work breakdown is. And then for this particular project, you're going to come up with a resources sheets, you know, a resources management, machinery, labor, and materials. Okay. And that will help you to this is a good project because they really did a proper nice resources allocation that they split up into gangs and all that. But I don't want to impose that on you because I feel like it's quite a lot of work, you know. This one they actually did it since the first week we meet, you see. So
So our project will be more simpler than this,
yeah,
right?
yes, simpler than this. Let me show you what they have done. Yeah. So what they do is they will put it in a table. Okay, so they'll have this manpower, and this manpower section whereby this is the work breakdown, and then these are the unit cost, labor, you know, labor, their production rate, you know. So what you need to do is you will have your the expectation that I have of you guys here will be you get your work breakdown done nicely, and then describe the work properly, do a nice work breakdown chart. This is a scope management bit already. And then after that, follow in and you need to do your resources, like your different, like something like this here. Okay. For different work, you will allocate different resources. First, you will be allocating the manpower, machineries, and materials. So you have three charts here. One is manpower, one is machineries, one is material. Stick to three things only, okay? And don't talk about management or whatever not. So manpower, you say, okay, for this bit, I will use 3 carpenter, 2 whatever, 2 operators, 1 surveyor. And then what is their production rate? And their production rate, you have to estimate like one day they can do how many, and therefore for this particular work they will take how many days. So this is under time management, okay? So which we have not covered with you, but I just give you an idea of what to expect. So with production rate calculation, I'll show you production rate calculation. So this is production rate calculation. So you see, the productivity rate is something that you need to find out. And those of you working for JKR, I think you have no problem finding out about the productivity rate, production rate. So duration is actually quantity of work over productivity. So that's why you need the material list. You see, if you don't have the material list, you don't have the quantity. And without the quantity, you can't do this formula. Production rate is actually quantity over duration. Okay, so now you get this hour or these days. Then it's from that hours and days you will readjust it and you draw your Gantt chart. That's it. You are done for the first bit. And then with the Gantt chart and also the quantity of materials that you have, you will build into a costing sheet. So in your costing sheet, you will have your costing, you will have your material. You have a work breakdown, total material, and your usage of labor and machineries based on time. And then from there, you will calculate your rate. So with people who has a rate in their hand, like JKR schedule rate and all that, it's easy. Then you can just take the rate and calculate your costing. So this is the estimates of the cost. So that will complete your part 1 and part 2. Okay, so I do not expect you all to, I think it is fine to combine part 1 and part 2 into one assignment. So when we give you the marks, it will be like 2 different 10%, 10%. Okay, so you don't need to hand in 2 pieces of work, like 2 cover page sort of thing. So just put it together, part 1 and part 2. Okay, that is an individual assignment that is going to be worth 20%. So once that is done, because you have already got the cost definition, you've already got this costing definition, you will build it into what we call the bills of quantities. And then with the schedule that you have, you will put it into your procurement plan. So then for the procurement plan, this is the characteristic of the project. It's the same thing that you are writing for your project background, whatever, work breakdown, everything will be applicable. Up to here, you will show me your Gantt chart, you will show me your costing, okay? But then this costing rate in this particular procurement plan, you need to convert that into a proper BQ, bills of quantities. Oh, never mind, I'll just take it out. I think that is way too much work already. So no need to convert into bills of quantity. With your costing sheets, with your, actually bills of quantity is supposed to be better presentation in terms of procurement documents. But since I feel like it's quite a lot of work, so let's just get this done first. So get your everything up until this point, the result that you get from here is a Gantt chart and the estimates, correct enough. So this tool, you will put it in your procurement, the initial bit of the group project, okay? And then you will write your tendering contractual method, tendering method, and then you will write like which method is better, and then you will write your procurement procedures, you know, like what time you need to submit the documents, where you need to fill and all that. So the requirement, the procurement requirement, and then followed by what we call summary or tender, and that's it, you're done for your group project. So now the question is, I'm trying to decide as well, that I want to discuss with you what is a better way of doing this. We are actually okay if we do the whole entire thing as a group, okay? But we need to do different submission for part A and B. So in ELIT later on, your part A and your part B needs to look like the individual assignment. So my take is you do everything together. That is actually working on your procurement. That is like you're treating this like a procurement plan already. And later on, with the result that you get from, I think this is the best. This is the best way. Okay, like this. Straight away now, you just go and do it as a group project. Yeah. Write your project background, do everything. Just treat it like you're doing the part C now. Okay, do everything, all your background, your studies, you know, and writing your work breakdown, everything. And then do your calculation on time together, do your calculation on cost together. Okay, then after that, this is going to be just do it for your group project kind of thing. Yeah. Then after that, you will write your tendering method, your procurement, your tendering method, your contractual method, your bills of quantities, and you know, like all these things for the procurement plan, your procurement requirement, then summary of tender. I think this is your whole project procurement plan that you're going to be handing in to me. So for the assignment, for the assignment, I need you all to cut that Gantt chart out, cut the relevant bit out, okay? All the relevant table, you just cut it out, and then you do your own individual assignment. Can you do that? Would that be better? That means for the group people, your chart and your data on your Gantt chart and your data on your estimates will be the same as the other people, the other group members that you have. I think we will do that because, like I said, I'm just worried about MQA checking it, but then I don't think they will check every single assignment. So we can always put it as, like submitting one version each, so I don't think they will be detected that you're actually doing exactly the same thing. But when you do the individual assignment, you need to format it a bit differently from one another. You only take the relevant information, and then you do your own project assignment. That is one option. Okay, if you find this option too confusing, there's no choice. Then you just have to do A, B as an individual by yourself, and then come together and do it. Come together and do a C together.
Mm.
I give you two options. I am okay. I am okay. I mean, like, what do you guys think? The actual assignment, I will post it up by this week, and then just now I show you what was our overall draft. But then when you get the assignment, you get the assignment group project. It's actually two different documents.
Dr. Ting, can you include the format also? The format that we need to follow? Or is it included in the summary just now?
Yeah, it is included in the summary at the end.
Oh, okay.
End of the year. Actually, to really show you WhatsApp some of one of you the past assignment that is done by my other group, and then at least you get an idea of how it would look like. But then of course theirs is very detailed. Don't get pangsang when you see that. Because that is their one project, their 150% project, one shot, so theirs is really, really detailed. So your individual assignment, I really don't expect that to be all of them. We need to decide in a way. I mean, either you do this as a group project, and then when you hand in your individual is the part that you need to figure out how to make, I think it's fair enough actually to make it different, because all you need to do is to cut all the tables out from your group project, part A and part B. Yeah, and then you shift it to the individual project, and then you don't look at your group project anymore. That one is your individual project. Then you have to sit down and work on writing up how you format your individual project in that sense .
Dr. Ting,
Yeah.
can I use my construction just a part of it, like I'm from MNE, so can I just use that as a project?
Can I like a part as in how? What is the part?
Dr. Ting, I can't hear you.
You keep quiet. Right. Can you hear me?
Can hear.
Yeah. Can't hear, is it?
It's a bit breaking.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, I
Huh?
cannot hear. Maybe my internet is not strong.
Okay, you can hear me, Can you hear me?
Can.
Okay. Right. So yeah, I mean, like, I have to understand what you mean by part. like how part is a part, you know. Like if you say M and E, I mean like if you just gonna have like what we are expecting is about 10 to 12 layers of major activities.
So then I'll just do the 12 main activities and I'll submit for you for review before I start the other things.
You want to do it as an individual or as a group?
I'll do it as a group and
Okay, who are you going to be grouping with now this time?
Anissa, because I'm already group with Anissa. So
Just, previously you are Anissa, you and Sheila, correct? No?
yes, correct.
So Sheila is not taking this, so it's going to be you and Anissa.
Yes.
Okay? And then the rest is Clarence with Victor. Is Victor taking this as well? No. So Clarence, who is in your group now for the oil and gas people? Do you still have enough people? You and Albert, right? You and Albert and Victor, is it?
No, Albert here. Albert is with Adria and Edery.
Okay, so the three of you will be still sticking together lah for this project, huh? I assume.
Yeah, I hope so.
Clarence will be with Zainuddin lah. Yeah, so that's correct. Okay, so that's fine. So you are both are doing pair work, and the other one is doing triple group work, and then the other two, Anissa and Natia, is doing it together. That's fine. Okay, so can we think of this as a group work first? Okay, to decide on your project, whether you're going to use the same one as your QM one, which I should suggest so, because then you save up on writing about the background and all these sort of things, you know, like the initial location of the project, blah, blah, blah. Those are all the same thing that you can repeat, you know. And then in this case, same as there, you're going to do a work breakdown. Same as here, you need to do a work breakdown. So you're actually killing two subjects with one stone, yeah? I'm fine with that, okay? So can you please, by next week, by next class, next class, like I say, I'll be tying up the loose ends for scope management, and the recording is I'll give you purely VE and LCC recording to listen to. So when we come to class, it's just going to be about the assignment, okay? About the assignment and the group project for both classes if you want to, yeah? Right.
It works in which work week, Dr. Ting? For the discussion?
Next Saturday.
Okay, all right.
So next Saturday, I need you all to come up with your work breakdown. You know, even better if you can show me your project initial background and all that sort of things, so that I can see whether it's actually enough and all that. Part of the report already, huh? So up until now, I don't foresee that some of you are still not doing anything yet. You know, I mean, like you have to be writing a report already for QM also, for PM also. So you can do it. Just go up to your work breakdown. I want to see your work breakdown first. You know, like what I showed you just now. The project that I showed you just now, I will send it to who? I think Safar had contacted me before this. Is it Edery? Edery, you are my RP students, right, Edery? Edery. I forgot who is my RP student. Yeah, so Edery, I will message you the sample of the project later, okay? I mean, like, but I said don't copy buta please, but it's in PDF, So then you pass it to the rest of the message, because I don't want to put it in a group that everybody can see, you know, so like all the other lecturers can see also. So I'll just message you, Edery, privately, and then you just send it out to your friends, and then you take a look at the part that go up to work breakdown structure. Yeah, I will show it to you again. I'll share it with you again. Let you take a look again. Okay, so basically I am expecting you all to come up to this already. Yeah. I expect you all to talk about this already. All this is done already next week. But, you know, if this is processes or production line or whatever, I need you to be a bit more detailed in terms of the introduction, because introduction do make cost marks, you know. So please make sure that you write your introduction properly. This group, the introduction is quite simple, quite you know, like kalang kabut like that lah. So they lost a lot of marks here in the introduction. So I think you should put a bit more in the introduction, and then go to your work breakdown, break down your work. I mean, like write about the work itself, and then after that, come up with the diagram or some form of work breakdown list. It doesn't have to be a breakdown like this. It can be any format that you deem necessary. You know, we can even do it like sectioning format like this. You know, you can have your your Excel. Okay, let me show you Excel. So you can have your level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. You can do it in a table format. So then you can put your level 1 activity here, like frame, structure frame, or RC frame. And then you follow by this bit here, second layer, what are the things that piling? Oh no, piling is not, it's supposed to be pile cap. Okay. Beams or stumps, beams, columns, roof, okay? And then here you have more detail. Like let's say if you have a few things here, then this one will, let's say if you have 5 activities here, then this thing will move down like this. Okay. Or yeah, it's better to be moved down. So then if there's another few activities in Beam, then you will put the activity names here. And whether you want to break it down further, you know, then you can copy and paste this. I'll show you in another example. I'm sure there is other example. Yeah. This is how other people do work breakdown. Okay. So can we commit that by next week during the discussion for the assignment, we will have this, okay? This is in a way pushing you all a bit, Otherwise, you never get started. That's the problem. All right, so this is the part that you do for both. You know, you're going to be doing this for QM, you're going to be doing this for PM. So up until work breakdown, it's going to be applicable for both subjects. And then so by QM, once you're done with this, you're going to be moving into studying the policies, the company policies, and all the things that is related to quality. And here, after you've done this, we are going to be waiting for Dr. Lee to give you a lecture on resources and all that. And then you can follow up and do your time, cost, and procurement. Okay?
Okay.
It's about adjusting, because the thing is, it may look simple, you know, but then we will need to see, you know, whether there's enough activity here for you all to discuss on, and whether the project is relevant, you know, whether it's expandable and all that. So I think it's good to actually, yeah. And if we're going to be discussing on the assignment, I think we can also make it into the, do you still want a separate session on quality management? I can have a separate session on quality management. Then you can gather the rest of the group members.
I think can combine. You mean the discussion for next week, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Combine.
I think the common portion we just combine, right?
Yeah, can. Okay. Well, I will see how we go next week. If let's say we will combine, then I will talk about PM first, and then we'll try to resolve some issue for QM. Then maybe you can get your group member to join in the sessions a little bit later, huh?
Mm.
Maybe an hour later. Ask them, give them the same link, and ask them to come together to listen, because this is going to be also a session for QM discussion for the assignment, huh? Project. So let's stick to that. I think it's better. Like I say, unless you really think about it and you feel like you want to do a separate assignment for time and cost, and then do a separate group for procurement, then I'm fine with that as well. It's just that, some of you may be a bit confused, but some of you will feel like it's clearer if you speak, but some of you may say it's fine, It's just about formatting. Albert, anything from you, Albert?
I'm okay.
Are you okay?
Mm.
So you think about it. For now, let's do the group one first, all the way up to next week, and then we'll see how you want to split later on for our project. I mean, for QM and PM, you're using the same project. Project wise is fine. Okay. Now it's a matter of assignment. I'm just thinking, like, if you have the same data, you need to do a different write up, like, in a way, like, the write up has to look a bit different from one another, lah. I really don't want to have a duplicate kind of thing, I don't
Okay.
mind, but like I said, I don't mind. I even told Dr. Lee it's fine for you all just to hand it in as, one group. But she also mentioned that because this particular course is actually under MQA jurisdiction, and they will come, definitely your first batch, they will come and do some auditing. And they will ask you to bring up all this assignment, and they will take a look at it, So I'm just worried on that, So if they didn't pass it, that means MQA don't pass, then what's the point of getting a degree that MQA don't recognize? You see? So we have to be very careful here, in a sense. Or we can just say we do it together as a group assignment, and then later on you take the data, and you go and do your own separate. Assignment, and then some of you, I would also suggest that you can change some of the data inside there, like some of the wordings or whatever, just to get it look like an individual assignment. Because the format is there already, so it's actually easier. Okay. All right. So let's target the group one first, and then we will move on from there.
Okay, doctor.
Right. I think that's it for today, and see you next week.
Okay.
Any more questions so far?
No.
Okay. Right. I will post up the recording. We have a long class today.